think, am I live? Am I live? Am I live? Am I live? Let's see. Hold on a second.
Hey folks, I'm Joe Biden. I like to.
Waiting for some audience to trickle in. I skipped the countdown because I think we have too much to get to and cannot wait for the countdown. Press the share button. Let's get this out to as many people as possible. Hold on. The chat is working. Press the like button. Like. A lot going on right now. I skipped the countdown so we could just get right into it, but I'm going to wait till we have a little bit more of an audience. 222. Trump military. 222. Just hang with me for a second as I wait for more audience to come in. Jen, if you could work on the tags for the live stream. If you didn't see, we just had President Trump speaking, and boy, a lot to get to. Let me know if you could hear me. Let me know if you could see me. I just saw somebody say the volume's low. Not low for me. So let me know if you could hear me okay. Keep sharing, keep liking, so we can get this out to more people. Crazy stuff going on right now. And tonight might get even worse. So, all right. What's up, Jordan? Let me share so we get this out. Breaking news. Hold on. Trump. Sorry, I'm just doing 4 things at once. Just waiting for a couple more people to come in, and then we'll start. Hope everyone is okay where you are. We are live on Twitter. We are live on Twitch. All right. I'll wait till we get over 100, and then we'll start. Send text. Send text, Jen. 222. Keep smashing that like button. Got almost 100 people watching. 45 of you have pressed the like button. We need more. I also have an interview with the NFL's Justin Jackson, the running back for the Los Angeles Chargers. There is a curfew tonight in New York and many other cities. I don't foresee everybody following those curfews. I haven't decided yet if I'm going out. I'll explain to you my situation in a little bit. Keep pressing that like button. It's a thumbs up button right under the live stream. Are we a failed state, or is that hyperbole? No, I think we've been a failed state for many years. That's not new, but I think more people are starting to realize now. Trump's address was hard to watch. It was like a dystopian horror movie. I agree. The U.S. seems like it is one gunshot away from collapse. That's not too far off. All right, got 100 people watching, so I'm going to start. Remember, press that like button. The more people that press the like button, the more people that will see this very live stream. This is Status Coup. We've been in the field throughout these protests. We've had freelancers in Minneapolis. We had a great freelancer from Los Angeles. I'm going to play you some of that video today, which honestly looked kind of like Baghdad or Gaza. We also had Jen out in the field. She got roughed up by police, and for like 25 minutes, we had no idea what happened to Jen, if you saw that. I was out last night Had some trouble finding the damn protest. I'll tell you about that later. But I wanted to come live because there's so much going on, and it's kind of hard to keep track of everything. But I wanted to give you as much news as possible before I possibly go out and cover stuff here. Remember, press the like button. It really, really helps getting this to more people. So Trump just spoke. While he was speaking, there was literally just utter chaos, like literally blocks away from him, with the National Guard's member and what looked like military in D.C. tear gassing protesters, pushing protesters. We also have this where police were literally, let me show you, punching a cameraman in the face. Look at this. So that was a member of the press that, I don't know who that was, DC police, it looks like it, just ramming his shield into a cameraman. And we've been seeing these press attacks for days and days and days. So it's truly astounding what's going on. Let me play you some of Trump's dystopian, militaristic, frankly, barbaric speech. This is a super chat, so give us support if you can. Here's Trump.
Have died in vain, but we cannot allow the righteous cries and peaceful protesters to be drowned out by an angry mob. The biggest victims of the rioting are peace-loving citizens in our poorest communities. And as their president, I will fight to keep them safe. I will fight to protect you. I am your president of law and order and an ally of all peaceful protesters. But in recent days, our nation has been gripped by professional anarchists, violent mobs, arsonists, looters, criminals, rioters, Antifa, and others. A number of state and local governments have failed to take necessary action to safeguard their residents. Innocent people have been savagely beaten, like the young man in Dallas, Texas, who was left dying on the street, or the woman in upstate New York viciously attacked by dangerous thugs. Small business owners have seen their dreams utterly destroyed. New York's finest have been hit in the face with bricks. Brave nurses who have battled the virus are afraid to leave their homes. A police precinct has been overrun. Here in the nation's capital, the Lincoln Memorial and the World War II Memorial have been vandalized. One of our most historic churches was set ablaze. A federal officer in California, an African-American enforcement hero, was shot and killed. These are not acts of peaceful protest. These are acts of domestic terror. The destruction of innocent life and the spilling of innocent blood is an offense to humanity and a crime against God. America needs creation, not destruction. Cooperation, not contempt. Security, not anarchy. Healing, not hatred. Justice, not chaos. This is our mission, and we will succeed. 100%, we will succeed. Our country always wins. That is why I am taking immediate presidential action to stop the violence and restore security and safety in America. I am mobilizing all available federal resources, civilian and military, to stop the rioting and looting, to end the destruction and arson, and to protect the rights of law-abiding Americans, including your Second Amendment rights. Therefore, the following measures are going into effect immediately. First, we are ending the riots and lawlessness that has spread throughout our country. We will end it now. Today, I have strongly recommended to every governor to deploy the National Guard in sufficient numbers that we dominate the streets. Mayors and governors must establish an overwhelming law enforcement presence until the violence has been quelled. If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them. I am also taking swift and decisive action to protect our great capital, Washington, D.C. What happened in this city last night was a total disgrace. As we speak, I am dispatching thousands and thousands of heavily armed soldiers, military personnel, and law enforcement officers to stop the rioting, looting, vandalism, assaults, and the wanton destruction of property. We are putting everybody on warning. Our 7 o'clock curfew will be strictly enforced. Those who threaten innocent life and property will be arrested, detained, and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I want the organizers of this terror to be on notice that you will face severe criminal penalties and lengthy sentences in jail. This includes.
So you get the point. Trump is pulling a full GI jackass, military commando. He is essentially saying, I am going to go to war with the people I'm supposed to protect. They don't particularly care about human life. They care about property being damaged because we live in the United Corporations of America, and they are very, very upset that businesses, companies are being destroyed. Thank you for the super chats. I might not read them as quickly today because there's a lot to get to. Thank you, DM Mag, $20. Thanks for the update. Keep doing you, man. No sellout press is what the world needs. We will not be selling out. Faux show. Thank you, Lightning Jim, $10. With what has been going on lately, I'm happy to have news outlets like Status Coup putting out the facts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have not only been putting out the facts, we've been in the field. I'll tell you about what I tried to do last night. I'm hoping to go out tonight. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. By the way, we're less than $4,000 away from our ultimate goal. We've raised a lot of money in the past few days. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep it coming right there. Nancy, thanks for the $25. We're now at 106,247. So anything you could contribute, we really appreciate it. So basically, I mean, I've been saying this for a couple days that I thought Trump was going to release the military because they want to quell this as soon as possible. Because the truth is, and obviously I'm being clear, I'm a white man saying this, so I don't want to speak for black people. But the truth is, what Trump and the leaders know is this is not only about George Floyd, as horrible as that murder was. And by the way, today it was proven. Independent autopsy finds George Floyd's death a homicide due to asphyxiation from sustained pressure. An independent autopsy called George Floyd's death a homicide and determined he died of asphyxiation from sustained pressure, a finding that is at odds with a medical examiner. The autopsy commissioned by Floyd's family says compression to the neck and back caused by officers kneeling on him led to a lack of blood flow to the brain. Floyd was essentially, quote, dead on the scene in Minneapolis on May 25th. Ben Crump, attorney for the Floyd family, said Monday. What this shows, by the way, whole nother story we don't have time for. You ever notice how autopsies done by the actual police and government always seem to find or often find results that match what the police say. But then when the family, which normally don't even have the funds to do an independent autopsy, but then when the family, in this case with Benjamin Crump and civil rights attorneys, get the funds to do an independent autopsy, oh, what do you know? They found asphyxiation as the cause of death, when the official autopsy, they didn't find that. Isn't that interesting? So I think what Trump and the entire oligarchy that presides over this unequal system realizes is this is starting out as a protest over George Floyd. But this is not just about George Floyd. I didn't play you the whole clip. I didn't play you Trump's whole speech. But he prefaced it with, we are all upset about George Floyd. But that does not give you license to loot and arson and this and that. But the reality is this is not only about George Floyd. JW, $10. Your old boss pissed us off. You are getting our money now. Thank you, JW. Definitely support us. Also, you could support us as a member. Statuscoup.com/join. We're moving back up in membership. We're at 1,787 members. We were close to 2,000, but we've lost a lot of members because of coronavirus and people getting laid off. So if you do have funding, statuscoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as 16 cents a day. That's $5 a month. Unless you see other outlets in the field in Minneapolis, in the field in Los Angeles, in the field in DC, in the field in New York. By the way, Jen is still bruised and hurt from reporting the other night. Say hi to her in the super chat, though. She's still a trooper. So support us if you can. Membership is how we grow for the long term. GoFundMe is a short-term measure. Membership is the long term. But the truth is, the arson, the looting, the property damage is not just about police killing black people. It's about black people being treated as inhuman for 400 years in this country. President Trump started his speech by saying this country was formed on law and order. This country was founded on law and order. That's not true, because this country was actually founded on kidnapping, on rape, and on genocide of Native Americans alongside of slavery. That's what this country was founded on, not law and order. And frankly, hundreds of years of this. We saw it in the 1960s with the civil rights movement. But now you're seeing it, and this is the key difference, I think. Now you're seeing it not just with black people in the streets. You're seeing with their white allies with them. Macy's girl, 21, $5. Now, I've covered police brutality protests for years, and I've always seen there's been a mix of white people, but it's always mostly black people. I think when you go city to city, I'm not everywhere. Thomas Sermon, $9.99 in the super chat. Thank you. Trump has to go now. You have almost an even split. White people now are finally standing up, not just because it makes them feel good, but because they are outraged. They have reached their breaking point too. Not to say white people are doing more than black people. Obviously, black people feel a lot more passionate and more threatened than white people. But you see the white people out there putting their bodies on the line too. And that's the key difference. That's the key difference between what we saw in the 1960s, what we saw with the Rodney King riots. There was always sprinkled in white allies, but this is very different. I also think it's not getting media attention because the media definitely doesn't want to talk about this because it would affect the status quo, and the media exists to preserve the status quo. That's why we need a status coup in this country. Magic Moron, $10. This is for you, Jen. Keep it coming. Indeed, for Jen. She was a trooper. And thank you. Keep the GoFundMe coming too. Beverly, $10. Nancy, $25. And by the way, I just want to say, I'm not going to dwell on it. I got a really nasty email from a viewer. I'm not going to get into it, about us fundraising and how it's so repulsive, this, that, and the other thing, to fundraise live. Then don't watch. If you want to shit on corporate media, then don't, after the fact, bitch about actual independent media that don't take money from banks, that don't take money from fossil fuckers, that don't take money from big real estate, that don't take money from big pharma, that don't take money from Silicon Valley, that don't take money from defense contractors, that don't take money from Hollywood scum giving money to Republicans and Democrats. You can't have it both ways. So I'm tired of seeing emails from people who, well, what do you think, money grows on trees? I hate to sound like your, father or mother. Do you think I could just print money out of my asshole?
They need to get a life.
Get a life. You think I could just print money, or Jen can print money out of her asshole to fund reporting all over this country? Seriously. We've been all over this country, unlike some quote unquote independent outlets that ask you to give you their money, to give your money. And they're the resistance, and they're rebel headquarters, and they're going to fight the good fight. And then they come to you from their comfortable studios and talk about Trump and Russia 24/7. So stop sending me emails. If you don't like that I have to fundraise to pay for all this, then do not watch. But I'm not going to apologize for actually being ethical, for not having behind-the-scenes, closed-door meetings with the very people I say I'm going after. And if you don't like it, then start your own independent outlet and figure out how to fund it. Because I'm damn proud of what we've been able to do with you. So I'll end with that. Thank you, Doug Twyman, $10. Keep up the good work. We need alternative media. Swirly Swirl, $10. Should I not read people's super chats too? Does that trigger you too? By the way, it was two people who sent me these emails. The Fort Wayne, Indiana police fired tear gas at protesters' faces. One man lost his eye. They used blocking traffic as their excuse and gave no warning before shooting the gas. Let me tell you something. I have seen this in the field. The police have been out of control in this country for a long, long time, and most people didn't get it. Most people never realized it. And I had to ruffle some feathers today because now people, the resistance is all of a sudden upset that the police are using tear gas. I see a lot of Hillary people and Biden people. Now they're upset that the police are using chemical weapons, illegal internationally in war. Tear gas is illegal internationally in war. Look it up. I didn't see those people saying that when a Democratic president, Obama, sat back when asked about Native Americans getting shot at in North Dakota, getting tear gassed, getting grenades shot at them. A 21-year-old white girl had her arm nearly blown off. She had to have her arm remade with other body parts in North Dakota. I didn't see any of them speaking up about journalists being brutalized and arrested, protesters being tear gassed. I didn't see Obama speak up on it either. Same thing at the Ferguson protests under Obama. Not to say Trump. I mean, look at Trump. He's literally calling for the military to basically kill Americans. So I'm not doing a false equivalency, but just so you know, this is not new. The police have been doing this for many, many years. It's just the media didn't give a damn, and the resistance crowd didn't give a damn because it was their wholly Democratic leaders. Wow, Jacqueline, 200 pounds. Love to Jen the Trooper, and fuck you to that viewer. I agree. Owen Gobbo, $20. Keep it on, brother. Appreciate it. Shane Bobka. Oh, I love Bobka. $4.99 was at the Sacramento protest. It was all peaceful until over 100 cops' cars showed up. And by the way, I was going to play this later, but if you guys haven't seen this, here's just a little snippet. And by the way, to the people complaining that I have to fundraise, we're using freelancers around the country to go live and report because I don't want to fly right now. I had coronavirus and I'm trying to be careful so I don't get it again and die. Excuse me. We have to pay those freelancers and we are happy to do it. So we're paying reporters all over the country to report and be on the ground. I want to show you some of this footage. Like, I haven't seen footage as good as this. Look at what happened in Los Angeles the other day. If you haven't seen this, I won't play the whole video, but look at this. This was Tina Desiree Berg out in Los Angeles for us, a freelance journalist for Status Quo.
There's what appears to be snipers on the roof. Oh, Jesus! Oh, yeah.
Now's not the time.
You cannot be behind us.
Stop punching
cannot
me with
behind
your
us.
fucking
Move up, man.
stick. Fine,
gotta move
then
up.
ask me politely. Don't proceed on me.
Okay, you gotta move up, man.
You gotta move
Here's
up.
the
You gotta
goddamn
move
First
up. Move up. You
Amendment
can do it from
asshole.
there.
Okay, hold on back.
Jesus! I can't breathe.
I can't either. Shit. Some water over there. Here's something.
Does anybody? No, I'm not okay. I don't know. Fuck! What did that guy hit me with? I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Oh my god. Okay, so you probably saw the camera going down and all that. I got hit with some tear gas, and one of the cops nailed me with his billy club, but it hurt like, you know what, I've never been hit by tear gas that close. I've been in tear gas before, but this was right in my face. I literally couldn't breathe. Thank God some of the protesters here had some milk and magnesia and some baking soda. They doused my face with it. Then some water, which was very helpful. But as you can see, things are not de-escalating, and the LAPD has now gotten involved. I could hear them talking over there, walkie-talkies up there, that they're going to start making arrests. They were saying they're going to try to corral everybody into the parking lot over here and block it off so that they can just pick everybody off. So I guess we'll see what happens next. Rubber bullets that they've been shooting into the crowd.
Plug 12. They got us plugged up. I'm this status. I'm 120 pounds. Why the fuck are you shooting me with that shit?
Oh, here comes the tear gas again. So these things actually hurt like a lot when you get hit by them. Did you get hit by one earlier?
Almost. Got in my chest right here. My heart.
You got a bruise, man?
They want us dead. They want us dead.
They're not gonna stop.
They want us
They're
dead.
not gonna stop.
They don't want black and brown, sir.
Do you think that's civilized? That's
No, it's
warfare
not.
right there.
What can we do? What can we do?
We need a medic.
My car shot by the cops in the face.
Oh my God.
Careful, you guys. Be careful.
Where were you at? I'll be right here.
Why is it not going through?
Oh my God.
Why is it not going through?
Because they have jammers, I can't even get into that. You can't get a call? Call like someone call 911.
911 is not answering.
You're kidding me.
Can you walk? Okay. So what we need to do is first stabilize the bleeding, and then we have to get her down to an open
When
area.
I see them close, I'm going to flag them down.
They're not going to get through all these protesters, I don't think.
They're coming. I hear them.
All right, give me.
Oh my God, how hard is it to get from 911?
Did anybody get
there's
a
just a
fucking
billboard,
paramedic for the girl that got hit in the...
You could go watch that whole video. You could go watch the whole video on our channel. That was Tina Desiree Berg. Her photographer was Jason. I don't know his last name, but amazing work, risky work. The person who was screaming at the police, have you ever heard of the First Amendment, was Tina, who's a journalist. And the police have been shooting and attacking journalists for days. I mean, again, they've been attacking journalists and people for years. But it was mostly in the quiet because you didn't have coordinated protests all over the country. But the things that were going on there, those videos, what you just saw, was going on for months in places like Standing Rock, but CNN would not cover it. MSNBC would not cover it. The New York Times barely covered it. And when these national outlets chose to cover it, by the way, we got 675 people watching. 427 of you have pressed that like button. I need another 200 of you. Please press the thumbs up button. We also have an interview coming up with NFL running back Justin Jackson. Huge progressive. Had a lot to say. Happened to call Joe Biden a racist. If you didn't hear Joe Biden today, his solution for all this, the cops, instead of shooting black men in the heart, just shoot him in the leg. I shit you not. This is what Joe Biden said today. We have to retrain the cops. Shoot for the leg, not the heart. No, this isn't The Onion. That's what he said. And subscribe to this channel if you have not yet. Subscribe to this channel. And quick few shout outs before I go on. Gino, $49.99. What the fuck is going on? We live in a fascist country, Gino. I've been saying it for years. Now more people are seeing it. That's what's going on. Rosie Mendez, $9.99. Tell protesters and Jen to wear protective glasses. They will start shooting at the eyes. In Chile, 230 protesters lost one eye while protesting. You were my hero since Standing Rock. Why, thank you. Cheryl Tyler, $20. Your protest coverage has been absolutely incredible. Bernie tried to have a peaceful revolution and they stabbed him in the back. Welcome to the revolution. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Rodney. $2. Is this martial law? Not good for future. Couldn't agree more. HG Spider-Man, 56, $10 for Jen. She is wonderful and tough as nails. Since you can't print money out of your ass, it's only for those that can contribute to do so. I appreciate it. Sorry for the graphic nature of my ass. Swirly Swirl, $5. Indiana governor also sent out the National Guard to protect the monuments. No one in their press briefing understood the outrage. Because the press isn't meant to understand your outrage. The press is meant to uphold the status quo. Most of the press in this country are out of touch, cosmopolitan jerk-offs, and they have no idea what's really going on in communities, particularly black and brown communities. Thank you for the super chat. The GoFundMe. Anonymous. We are now $106,272 away. That would be $738 away. $738 away from hitting $107,000. Our ultimate goal is $110,000, so we're getting close. So before I get to more, a lot of you saw this, but if you didn't see this, I want to show you. Jen, co-founder of Status Quo, was covering DC protests the other night. Clearly had on her press badge. She had what they call a monopod, which isn't like a full tripod, but it's like a slim down tripod, which you would put a camera on. So she had her monopod, her phone on the monopod, and that's what she was broadcasting from. The cops knew she was a journalist. The cops, according to Jen, targeted her before firecrackers went off. And Jen, some people criticized Jen after I tweeted out what happened, mostly right-wingers from the Daily Caller and other places, saying, well, if you're a journalist, you shouldn't be that close to the protesters. If you're that close to the protesters, then you're one of the protesters. No, you fucking moron. Actual journalists get in the trenches between the protesters and the police, because part of your job as a journalist is to have the camera there so that the police have accountability, so that there's a camera on what the police are doing. So you kind of have to be near the protesters. Not to toot my own horn, but do you know several Native American people, I never thought about it this way, but several Native American people came to me, both during Standing Rock and after Standing Rock, when I was at the Young Turks reporting at Standing Rock, and said, if not for you, they would have used real bullets. The only reason they didn't use real bullets is because your camera was there. So it makes a big difference, even independent journalists, when they're there. Because the police will only go half-cocked most of the time and start shooting real bullets if there's nobody there to document it. So thank you, Brian. Sorry no more. Getting laid off from work soon. Totally understand. We appreciate it. Sorry to hear about you getting laid off. I mean, this went on for 3 hours, this live stream. We cut it up into 3 minutes. Look at what happened. Jen, just doing basic reporting. What happened to her?
Vehicle on fire.
No
justice, no peace! No peace! No peace!
Oh shit. Sorry.
Whoa! Hey, yo, let him go! Yo, take the fuck! Let's go! Hey, pump it down! Forward and back. All right, let's get down around the wall! Down around the wall! Down around! Go over the wall. All right, we're good. Let's go, rocks over there. We're taking rocks down. Rocks! 16th and L. Heads up! To the right. Right there. Papers to the right, I got papers. What's up?
So, first of all, and by the way, we got 706 people watching right now. 600 of you have pressed the like button. Can I get another 100 of you, please? Press that thumbs up button. The more people that press the like button, the more people that will see our live stream. Makes a big, big difference to get the likes up. First of all, and Jen's still kind of recuperating. She was bruised. Her hip is kind of mangled, but so she'll be back in a day or two. But, you know, I wasn't there, but I could tell you, it's often unclear who is doing what. A lot of times police say, well, the protesters are, you know, looting and smashing store windows in and burning things up and shooting fireworks and this and that. But a lot of times it's actually police infiltrators dressed as protesters doing these things. A lot of times it's police undercover smashing windows and this and that to then create the narrative of, oh, these protesters are out of control, they're criminals, they're arsonists, they're anarchists. It's not to say that there aren't some actual protesters doing violent things. That's not what I'm saying. But in the case of there, I don't know who was exploding fireworks. Maybe Jen does. It could have been protesters. It could have been police. It could have been undercover police. It could have been outside agitators. Agitators, I don't even like that word. Outside groups trying to stir shit. So the bottom line is, in that moment, the police rushed the protesters, and according to Jen, who I believe, no reason not to, police specifically not just like rammed into her, but rammed into her in a way that would knock down her phone and monopod. I just showed you when we started this live stream, in DC, police were literally punching with a giant shield a cameraman. So police are intentionally trying to beat up journalists. In this case, they don't know where they're from. They don't know if they're beating up CNN. They don't know if they're beating up Independent. They don't really care because the police have operated with basically blanket impunity for decades in this country. And it's gotten a lot worse basically the last 10 years under Democrat and Republican administrations. Because we, and I speak with Justin, who plays for the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm going to be airing that in a little bit. The police have been they've been fetishized in this society. And to be clear, I'm not saying every single police officer is a terrible person. I went to high school with two that come up off the top of my head that were nice guys in high school. I haven't kept in touch with them, but I assume they're still nice guys. They were salt of the earth in high school. I'm sure that they actually went into it to try and help people. So it's not everyone of anything is terrible. But the bottom line is, what you're seeing now, it seems new because we finally have coordinated protests all over this country. You haven't seen this level of protest since MLK's assassination, which most of us were not alive for. But this barbarism, not only towards journalists, but protesters went on at Standing Rock, went on at Ferguson protests, went on in Baltimore for Freddie Gray, Rodney King riots. Goes on all over the country when it's not national news, just day to day. Chicago police have been doing this to black people for decades. And by the way, just to show you the true power of independent journalism, Anat. Anat. Yeah, if she comes. Literally, I want to give you the actual play-by-play of what happened. Jen told me she was going to D.C. to cover it. I said, great. She got a local hotel to be right in the middle of everything. I feel stupid that I should have asked what the hotel was, because then when the screen went blank for 25 minutes, I was thinking like, shit, let me call the hotel, but I didn't know to see if they could tell me if Jen returns. Because literally, when that screen went blank, I, like all of you that were watching, I'm not trying to dramatize, I don't know what exploded. I don't know if that was a firecracker. I don't know if that was an IED device. I don't know what that was. For all I knew, Jen was badly injured. For all I knew, Jen was worse than injured. I'm being honest. That was what was going through my mind. I generally don't tend to jump to the worst case scenario, but literally her phone went to the ground and stayed live streaming for 3 hours. Oh, excuse me, no, an hour and a half after that. But for 26 minutes, I clocked it, for 26 minutes, nobody heard from Jen. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if she was okay, hurt, worse than hurt. The audience literally was watching a black screen on the ground with just the audio and hearing explosions, sirens, and then remarkably, I literally, I couldn't believe it. After she did call me from her hotel, and I informed the audience she's okay, she's bruised, but she's okay. The audience stayed for literally 90 minutes watching a black screen, listening to chaos. So definitely we will adapt next time she's out there or when I'm out there, so that there's contingencies. We probably should get backup phones too, which, sorry to the person who emailed me, we might have to ask for funds for that. God forbid, I have to ask the audience to support independent journalism. But credit to Jen, she was badly bruised, her hips were injured, and it's traumatic. You might be a journalist, but we're human. I mean, it's not, it was scary for her. It'd be scary for me. So I also want to show you something that happened last night. I tried to go live last night, but we had issues. I'll explain that. But I also witnessed this. This wasn't a violent incident, but I want you to just see that the police terrorism of black people, I don't think people realize this. It's not only white officers that are doing this. Thank you very much. Anonymous, $20. Abdi Al-Kim, sorry if I mispronounced your name, $10. Seth Peterson, $20. Anonymous, $15. Woo! We are now $678 away. $678 away from $107,000 raised. Keep it coming if you can in the GoFundMe. We really, really appreciate it. I was having trouble going live last night. I'll explain that a little bit later. I want to show you, I saw an African-American police officer and African-American protesters arguing. So I got up and recorded it because that could go bad really quickly. This was right in Times Square. I think what I captured here is really instructive on the problem with the police. Let's take a look.
That's what I do. What do you do for the neighborhood? I mentor kids. Mentor kids. Where you mentor them at? Brooklyn. Why you don't mentor your fellow police officers? Yes, I do. I mentor kids. It's not about the kids. It's about your officers. But it's not about the kids. It's about the officers. Yeah, he'll never get it. Come on. He'll never get it. He'll never get it. You're not. I'm not saying it right now. You get it. No. That's not what I'm saying. See, you haven't been through. ever been through police brutality? Have you? Have you?
How many times you got beat up by the cops?
How many times you ever? Nah, seriously, look.
We're having a conversation.
Nah,
Stop.
yeah, you're right. Look, let me take. You spoke, so it's now it's time for me to speak, right? Look, son. How many times?
Come on, let's talk. Let's talk.
Nah, seriously. How many times have you ever dealt with police brutality?
We're talking, right? So why you like this? Why you like this? What you're doing is not
How many times have you ever had to write excessive force on one of your partners, on one of your fellow officers, for them using excessive force? Yes.
I've never done it.
Yes.
I have.
Oh, you don't know nobody that done it. You don't know nobody that done it, right?
Sir, I can't have three
You don't
conversations.
know nobody that done it, right? It's the same conversation. We just all in it. It's the same conversation.
What you're doing by destroying your own community is not helping.
I'm not destroying
You're
nothing.
destroying your own
I'm not
community.
destroying nothing. You say you're destroying anything? Do you see me destroying anything?
Do you see me killing people?
You're guilty by association.
And you're
guilty by association.
so that goes both ways.
Together.
That goes both ways. That goes both ways.
So then, yeah, so I'll take that. I'm destroying stuff. So now you, so you're gonna take responsibility? So now are you gonna man up? I'm manning up. Yes, I'm destroying shit. Are you gonna man up? Are you gonna man up? Are you gonna man up? I'm manned up. I'm saying I'm destroying shit.
Save your community. Save your community.
No, y'all don't speak. 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 The same way y'all defend yours, I'll defend mine. The same way y'all defend yours, I'll defend mine.
Uplift your community.
Stop destroying mine.
By me?
Yes.
And my oppression.
All y'all oppressing. Y'all all together. Y'all all together.
Build your community.
Guilty by association.
Help the younger generation. Show the younger generation a better way.
Right now.
Certain things
This is not the way. You can't help the community this way.
Around and not say nothing.
That's the problem. You think because you have him filming you is good?
I don't know this guy. I don't know him.
He's always wrong.
What does he do for you?
I don't know him. He was just standing here. I don't know him. I don't care what he's doing. I don't care what he's recording. I don't
Let me
know
ask you a
him.
question. Right? Tomorrow when you wake up, right? Are you still a black man in America?
Yes.
When I wake up, I'm a black man in America, right?
Yes.
What is he tomorrow?
I don't know what he's doing. I don't know him. I don't know what he's doing.
He's trying to distract. That's what
Exactly.
he's trying to distract.
It's
from the
divide and
conversation.
conquer. Divide and conquer.
I'm depressed. I know.
Divide and
I don't know if you
conquer.
realize there's a constitution in the country.
You my man from TYT?
Good.
Yo! Coop, I know who you are, yo.
How you doing, man?
You the man, yo. You
What do
the
you think of
man.
what this cop's saying?
Yo, listen, man, this situation that we got going on is divide and conquer. We all just trying to come together so we can get the message out there that this is bad, yo. They're complicit in the crime. They watched it, listen, these are their partners. We're just out here just trying to get the message across. We all trying to come together as one and let it be known that we're not going for it no more. It's a different day and age. We here now.
He kept talking about building your community, but the problem is, how do you build your community if your community keeps getting killed by those cops?
Absolutely. Listen, I'm a victim of police brutality myself. I was assaulted by the cops, you know, on several occasions. I come from Brownsville, Brooklyn. In my neighborhood, is the 73rd precinct is where I'm at. And that's where stop and frisk is most prevalent in the city. And it's crazy where I come from. My whole life, I'm 39 years old. I could have been assaulted by the cops over 20 times in my life. Nobody ever came to help us. Other cops stood around. They were complacent. Those are criminals. They're complacent in the crime. So we here, we mad.
So what do you think the media seems to be trying?
Go watch the whole video. It's up on the channel. There's about like 10 more minutes. First of all, I love how this guy is, I'm a tough guy, and what are you doing? Why is your badge covered, sir? Why, as police officers, we pay myself, a white guy, those guys, the black protesters that was there, we all pay for that cop's job. So why is his badge number, i.e. his identity, covered? Can somebody explain that to me? Because I was at a protest, covering a protest in New York City a couple days ago, and literally there was a row, probably of 24 cops. None of them were wearing none of them had their badge numbers. Isn't that interesting? It's almost like they want to be able to do whatever the hell they want with zero repercussions. And the government and society as a whole have let cops do whatever the hell they want frankly, with zero repercussions. And by the way, let's not pretend that even when cops have been sent to jail, it was enough. Jason Van Dyke in Chicago shot an unarmed black man 16 times. Rahm Emanuel, a Democrat, covered it up. He only got second-degree murder. He shot him 16 times. The majority of those shots when he was already on the ground. Second-degree murder. This guy, Derek Chauvin, literally strangled George Floyd for, I think it was 8.5, 9 minutes. George Floyd was saying, "I can't breathe," calling for his mother. He got third-degree murder. Now, Minnesota Attorney Keith Ellison, a great progressive, former congressman, he is now on the case. My assumption is you will see an increase in those charges. Thank you for the super chat. A. James, 20 bucks from New Zealand, I think. Reminder, racism is classism. We need a general strike now. We need to make this bigger than police brutality. As bad as that is, it is not the biggest problem the 99% face, whether or not you're a person of color. Completely agree. By the way, folks, keep pressing the share button, keep pressing the like button. I'm going to air my interview with NFL running back Justin Jackson in a few minutes. He has a lot to say, including about, isn't this what Colin Kaepernick was protesting about and why he was banished from the NFL? Stay tuned. I'm going to show that in a few minutes. Daniel, 20 bucks. Thank you, Daniel. Keep it coming also in the GoFundMe. Seth Peterson, $50. Thank you, Seth. What is it going to take for all of America to hit the streets against the oligarchy? They were lied to for 4 years that it's Russia who's sabotaging their democracy and not their own government. Our rights have been violated for decades. WTF. Hey, Seth, are you paying attention? They're already starting with blaming Russia again. Literally, Susan Rice, President Obama's national security advisor, and other frauds are on TV the last few days saying, oh, Russia's taking advantage here. Russia is also involved. Let me tell you something. I would put my life on the line, and the very little money that I have personally, that there is not one black man or woman that has gone out all across this country because Russia is involved. I would put my life on it. Thank you, Seth, for the super chat and the GoFundMes, by the way. Appreciate it, Seth. N Stark 007, what's your thoughts on Biden? Shoot him in the leg comments. I'm going to get to that. I have a lot to get to. Thank you for the super chat. I'm going to get to that. So I want to make a few points about that video. First of all, credit where credit is due. At least that police officer spoke with the protesters. It's a lot more than the rest of these police officers who are choosing to tear gas them, shoot rubber bullets at them, which, by the way, can kill you. A rubber bullet at point blank range in your head can kill you. Okay? So, at least he's talking to him. But what I have found, and again, want to be careful as a white guy, not make blanket statements about anything having to do with black people. Absolute power corrupts across race. There's a lot of black politicians that are just as corrupt as white politicians. There's a lot of members of the Congressional Black Caucus, frankly, that haven't done a damn thing for black people for years. And there's a lot of black police officers that might not consciously think that they are essentially accomplices to white imperialism, white police terrorism, but once they get that badge, they drink that strong, that potent Kool-Aid of a baton, a gun, and a power complex, and they start cracking skulls. And they don't see that they're cracking black skulls. They just get a power complex. Not all officers, but a lot of them. So when that black officer is talking about what are you doing for your community, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? What? This protest is about you, officer, whether it's you, that officer, or your white colleagues, murdering unarmed black men all over this country. I don't care if that black guy is a Nobel Prize winning scientist or inventor in his community, or if he is doing illegal things. What he does for the community has nothing to do with your barbarism, with your murder, with your terrorizing of black communities. And I'm not saying your as in him, I'm talking about the police. Because to me, It is a hard job, but it's a job these people, black and white, are choosing to do. So yes, it's a hard job, but if you choose to be a police officer, it's your choice, and you have to deal with the consequences. And by the way, silence in the face of injustice is complicity. So that officer poking and prodding, what are you doing for community? Who cares what he's doing for his community? That's irrelevant. Why are you standing by these police officers? Because as we've heard from other protesters, the police are the biggest and baddest gang in history. That's the biggest gang there is. And the code of silence is real. Thank you for the super chat. Elisa, $5. Police need to stand together with protesters. Thank you, Jordan, Jen, Anat, Rational National, Jimmy Dore, Hill. Love you guys for exposing the truth. Appreciate it. Thanks for the super chat. Obrero, 13, $2. ILW Local, 13 in the house. Appreciate it. By the way, subscribe to this channel if you're new. We are having a lot of new viewers. So make sure you subscribe, click the bell. You could also sign up as a member. Support status quo for as low as $5 a month. Makes a big, big difference. So let me just make sure. F. Fraijo, $5. As a former Army officer, it was unthinkable to turn out weapons on U.S. citizens. We were trained to do the opposite. I hope they refuse those orders. I do too. I really do, because what we're seeing in this country is getting scary. Thank you, Chris, $25 in the GoFundMe. Thank you, Anonymous, $10 in the GoFundMe. We are now $643 away. $643 away from hitting a $107,000 race. So here's another point about that officer, because I was just enraged when I was seeing this. He keeps talking about what are you doing in your community? What are you doing in your community? Well, what do you want him to do in his community? If his community has been basically left to rot by our government, when his community has been the victim of de-investment by our government, when his community is patrolled more than white communities by you, the police, when his community has been terrorized by the police, when his community has basically been treated as second-class citizens in their own country, what would you like him to do in his community? Like building your community? How do you build your community if you're a young black man in this country, if you're literally afraid walking out the door? How do you build the community if you literally can't go? You can't drive certain parts of your community, because if you drive to those parts of the community, you might get shot. That's not my opinion. I've spoken with a lot of black people in this country. I've been arrested covering police brutality protests in St. Louis. I've covered police brutality protests in St. Louis. I've covered them in Detroit. I've covered them in Chicago. I've covered them in Flint. This ain't my first rodeo. So what are you doing in your community? It's a little hard to, be a hero in your community if you are living in terror. Finally, I want to move on to Joe Biden's words of wisdom before we get to the interview with Justin Jackson, NFL running back, who this interview is amazing. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you've seen the quiet racism going on. This is also footage Jen captured. Take a look at this.
What you gonna do? What? Yeah, call your nigger husband.
Oh my God, what is wrong with you?
What do you say?
Oh.
What do you say?
Oh my God, what is wrong with you?
So you probably didn't hear that because it was low. The guy from across the street to the protesters, basically, Jen would know because she was there, basically said, "Get the hell out of here, you N-words." Drop the N-word just casually. That's the kind of casual racism in this country that's been going on for a long, long time. And Jen could leave in the super chat exactly what he said. By the way, we got 800 viewers watching, so keep pressing the like button, keep sharing. So, yes, he did call them the N-word. So, let's listen to Joe Biden. I mean, honestly, I wish this was The Onion, but it's not. This is what Joe Biden had to say today.
And the idea that instead of standing there and teaching a cop when there's an unarmed person coming at him with a knife or something to shoot him in the leg instead of in the heart is a very different thing. There's a lot of different things that can change. The idea that instead of standing there and teaching a cop when there's an unarmed person coming at him with a knife or something to shoot him in the leg instead of in the heart is a very different thing. There's a lot of different things that can change. And the idea that instead of standing there and teaching a cop when there's an unarmed person coming at him with a knife or something to shoot him in the leg instead of in the heart is a very different thing. There's a lot of different.
So I wanna be fair here, because I don't want to distort what Biden was trying to say. I don't quite know what he was trying to say because I've been saying for over a year, long before people were comfortable saying this, that he clearly has some cognitive problems. He's clearly in cognitive decline. It's a damn crime against journalism that the media has basically covered up that fact. Joe Biden is clearly in early cognitive decline of some sort. I'm not mocking him. That's just clear. He doesn't make sense when he speaks most of the time. He has trouble finishing sentences. He mangles words. He forgot Obama's name multiple times during speeches. He called himself an Biden-Bama Democrat. So he clearly has some issues. In that sentence, at first he said, if an unarmed person is coming at you, and then right after it he said, with a knife. So somebody direct messaged me wanting me to retweet their tweet saying, Biden should drop out because he said this. And my first thought was, well, when I listened to it, I think he meant if somebody's coming at you with a knife, don't shoot him in the heart, shoot him in the legs. I mean, to be honest with you, if somebody is coming at a police officer with a knife, we can't say, a police officer doesn't have the right to defend himself if they actually are. We all know that police officers all the time say, well, I thought he had a knife. I thought he was going for his gun, when in reality he was going for his cell phone, or whatever. But if somebody's actually coming at a police officer with a knife, I think it's objectively, yes, they should defend themselves. But again, because he's cognitively not well, I don't know what the hell he was saying. In one breath, he said, if an unarmed person is coming at you with a knife, well, you're not an unarmed person if you're coming with somebody with a knife. So again, I don't know what he was saying. It's going around Twitter. People are taking it as he was saying, if an unarmed person is coming at you, shoot him in the leg, not the heart. Well, if that's what he meant, then that's a problem. It's not okay to shoot unarmed people, period. I don't know what's so hard for Joe Biden to understand. If someone is unarmed, you're a fucking police officer. If they're coming at you, you've been trained how to bring somebody down, how to defend yourself. But again, he said, if an unarmed person's coming at you with a knife or something, so again, because he's cognitively not well, he don't make sense. Okay, so if somebody's coming at you with a knife, yeah, I think they have the right to defend themselves. But the problem is, it goes back to what I've been saying this whole live stream. We in America, the government, have fetishized the police to the point where they get every single benefit of the doubt. Not the black man that gets murdered. The police, if they say, I feared for my life, well, the police say they feared for their life, so be it. Oh, I thought he had a knife. I had to shoot. I thought they were going for a gun. I had to shoot. And we all know their fellow police officers are complicit because they make up statements all the time. We have seen it all over this country that the police put down in their reports of what happened. They lie. But whatever Joe Biden was trying to say, no, the answer is not, instead of shooting them in the heart, shooting them in the leg if the person's unarmed. If the person is coming at you with a knife, I think police can defend themselves. But again, here's the problem, and one of the reasons, I mean, at this point, I don't know if Donald Trump is going to win. I think a comatose, severely cognitive declining man like Joe Biden might win at this point because Trump is inciting a race war. Trump is inciting possibly the next civil war. And I don't know if an incumbent can win no matter how bad his challenger is under that condition. But this is one of the main problems with Biden, and I've been saying it for a year. He is past his expiration date. I don't know what to say. He can't speak. Welcome, new member, Abdi Hakim. Woohoo! Abdi Hakim, by the way, as great as the GoFundMe support has been, if you're not a member, that's what we want for the long term. Sign up, statuscoup.com/join. Jen, it's June 1st, so we'll have to have our monthly members call with our members pretty soon. You know the drill. We have a monthly, maybe sometimes we do more than once a month, video call on Zoom with our members. It's a lot of fun. Kind of the wild, wild west. We share way too much information, including secrets that we shouldn't tell you. So this month should be a good one. Sign up, statuscoup.com/join, and you get bonus behind-the-scenes content too. So I got to tell you, and I speak with Justin Jackson about this, which I'm about to air the interview. Right now, your choices are this. A full-on racist who is essentially saying, I'm going to unleash the military to basically shoot at protesters, even if they're unarmed, even if they're peaceful, will just say they were coming at us. That's what his speech is stoking. He is stoking possible real violence. We know Trump is a racist. We know he's an Islamophobe. We know he's a sexist. We know he's a homophobe. And we know all this. Just look at the Central Park Five. Look at his family's housing discrimination for decades. So you have that versus the guy who drafted and pushed the crime bill, which created mass incarceration, which really accelerated the militarization of the police, and who now claims to be a friend of black people, who takes hundreds of millions of dollars from Wall Street, who, by the way, Wall Street is maybe more responsible than anyone for black people and brown people continuing to live in mass poverty. I get into that with Justin. And, oh, by the way, his answer for all this, I mean, you just can't make this stuff. This is Biden. The only way to bear this pain is to turn all that anguish to purpose. And as president, I will help lead this conversation. Oh, the conversation. We always hear about the conversation that needs to happen. So I tweeted, we don't need a conversation. A meaningless word corrupt white politicians use to signal action and then never do anything. We need to undo Joe Biden's racist crime bill and defund police departments until they stop killing black people. End of story. Conversation. What are you going to do? What is there to talk about? And by the way, this isn't just Joe Biden. Politicians have been talking about this conversation we have to have about race. There's no time for a conversation. Black people are being used as target practice by the police. I don't have time for your conversation, Joe Biden. Thanks for listening. $20. Why is it now Antifa, and why is anti-fascism bad? Isn't it much more likely that the nation is rightfully enraged? Whether you see yourself as a conservative, liberal, progressive, aren't police supposed to protect and serve? Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening, because I've been saying this for a while. First of all, Jen knows this. My girlfriend knows this, who does work in does counterintelligence work. Antifa is not a thing. Okay, what I mean by that, Antifa is not an organized thing. Like Black Lives Matter is organized. They have chapters all over the country. Our revolution, organized. Antifa is a discombobulated, whatever you would call it, It's not really a group. It's more of an idea with people behind it. So Trump, this is what they do to distract. They also distract with the Russians. The Russians are behind this. They said this about Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement. The Russians are behind these unruly, rowdy black people. Oh, we got another member. Welcome, Michelle. New member for Status Quo. Woohoo! We are now at 1,789 members. Keep it coming. Maybe we can get to 800 tonight. 1,800 tonight. So, it's not Antifa. Antifa is not behind the protest. Antifa is not the one burning all the buildings. This is just Trump, Republicans, some Democrats trying to deflect and distract because the chickens are coming home to roost, and frankly, hundreds of years of just straight up genocide towards black people. The white people are now joining the black people. This is the difference. We have never seen this many white allies. I don't want to say getting as enraged as black people, because obviously white people can't be as enraged or feel what black people feel. But getting this involved, that is the difference. Which gives me a good segue. If you follow Twitter, there's an NFL running back, Justin Jackson. He's plays for the Los Angeles Chargers, who has been, honestly, one of my favorite progressives to follow on Twitter. He's been going at the Democratic establishment hard. He's one of the most opinionated players in the NFL. I had the ability to interview him early. We spoke about George Floyd, obviously, the Democratic Party, Trump, Biden. It was really, really interesting. I think you're going to like it. Please, please, please keep the super chats coming. If you have funds, we do not take. Holy cow, Isabel, $100 in the GoFundMe. Whoa. Thank you, Isabel, $100. Antonio, $40. We are now just, what is that? $503 from $107,000. So thank you. Keep it coming. By the way, just a PSA, public service announcement about me, because you might be wondering. So here's the deal. I always keep it real with you guys. I've wanted to go out and cover more of the protests here, but there's a few problems. Number one, because of your GoFundMe support, we were able to purchase a brand new LiveView. LiveView is our mobile satellite. It essentially allows us to go around, and instead of broadcasting from our phones, which normally if you broadcast from your phones, you're going to have a lot of connection problems, particularly where there's a lot of people. A live view is basically what a lot of news outlets use to go live. It binds different cell towers together, and it gives you a much better stream live. Most, like CNN, they have satellite trucks, which are literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. Live view, we started with the bottom of the barrel live view. We've worked our way up to getting the LiveView 600, which is super, it's the top of the line LiveView. It's also $24,000, and we were able to purchase it thanks to you guys. We just purchased it, and we do not have business insurance on it yet. As much as I want to get out there, I'm not taking a brand new $24,000 unit out that could be damaged. If you see what happened to Jen the other day with her phone, I will not take the risk of taking that unit out to be damaged or stolen or worse. Because if it gets damaged or something happens to it, we're out. You're out because you funded it. So the other problem is I can go out with my phone, but the stuff I use to shoot for my phone is at my parents' house, which I haven't been to since the coronavirus broke out. So last night I tried to go out. I didn't even have anything to put my phone on, and my microphone broke. My wireless mic, this thing, showing you all the behind the scenes. This, the receiver for the wireless mic, and this, the microphone, broken. So I might try to go out tonight, just like literally holding my phone. It'll be shaky, but it's better than nothing, I guess. The other problem is in New York City, it ain't easy to find where the hell the protests are. During the day, it starts at Union Square, so I could go there. But at night, if you are late, meaning if you don't get there exactly when the core group of protesters start, you're basically behind all night. Literally last night, I went to Times Square because I thought that's where the core protests were. They had just left 20 minutes before. Then I went to Union Square, thinking the core protest was there. I got to Union Square, They had just left, I was told. Then I went to the Manhattan Bridge. I literally did this all last night. Then I went to the Manhattanville Bridge. Gone. Then I got back to Union Square where CNN was showing police cars on fire and protests. When I got back there, they had already started marching north. So I literally had my tail behind my legs all night trying to find the damn protesters. So tonight, if I go out, I'm going to try to do it differently. I have ordered a new monopod and a new mic from Best Buy. It should be here today, but it's already 8:20, so I got to look where it is. But bear with me. I hope you understand I don't want to take our brand new unit out until we get it insured. We're trying to get it insured like ASAP, but there's an application you have to put in and all that stuff. So anyway, sorry for the long-winded. I just don't want you guys to think like I'm just sitting back, but I would never forgive myself if the money you guys donated to us, police are clearly going after journalists, and I don't want to take the risk with such an expensive piece of equipment. With that said, here is my interview with NFL star running back Justin Jackson. Please keep the Super Chats and the GoFundMe coming. Hey, it's Jordan. Delighted to be joined by NFL running back, progressive activist Justin Jackson. I've been talking to you on Twitter, but now I get to talk to you in real life. I'm just going to start with the obvious. We haven't seen anything like what we're seeing in America, possibly since MLK's assassination. New York now has a curfew tonight, which might lead to worse things. Obviously, Los Angeles, where you play for, has had a lot of protests and some violence. What's your initial thoughts? Obviously, this isn't only about George Floyd, right. But why do you think this particular murder of a black man has led to what we're seeing around the country?
I mean, I think this was just kind of a tipping point. I think you take all of the factors that people are going through right now, as far as coronavirus and just being distressed without having jobs, without having any relief. Seeing trillions and trillions of dollars being spent by the government, but none of that going back to them. People still have to pay rent, mortgages, student loan debts. People are lacking health care. I just think it's a perfect storm. And then this was kind of the tipping point. And I think after seeing video after video, especially after the Ahmaud Arbery killing as well, I think that was like a few weeks before the George Floyd killing. I think people are tired of it, and it's nice to see that it's more than just people of color that are finally coming to the forefront. And then you see all these videos of cops, right? They're beating the crap out of anybody. It doesn't matter your color, your religion, whatever, like your gender, nothing. They're just beating senselessly everyone who seems to threaten their authority. And so I think I'm hoping that this will be a tipping point for us to actually usher in some change, because far too often we've seen, protests and stuff. And then a few months later, people just kind of forget about it and all that type of stuff. But I think it's different now because a lot of people don't have jobs to go back to. There's not a normal type of life to go back to distract you from the very real issues that people are protesting about. So I'm hoping that can usher in some change, but that remains to be seen.
And it's interesting because I've always said we live in the United Corporations of America. Our government just fetishizes business. Yep. Business can do no wrong. We have to bend over backwards to give business subsidies and tax breaks and basically let them rule the government. But we also fetishize police in this country to the point where I think even under a black president, now obviously under, whatever you want to call this president, they feel like they basically could operate with total immunity. Right. It's not just the George Floyd video, but I mean, we've seen police the last few days, just like I just saw a protester was on the ground. He just kicked her in the face. Right. No threat to the police officer. We've seen police officers just charging protesters who weren't even up in their grill. I saw in New York City, it looked like two police officers were making like white power signals with their hands. What do you think, obviously as a black man, there's the police violence, but also this psychology among, not every single police officer, but a lot of them that, it's this testosterone fueled, power complex that, for most of our history, our country has enabled.
Yeah, I think yeah, you're right. We have fetishized the police, and I think we were really propagandized into believing that the police were there to protect and serve us, the people, right? And I think it's come to a point where people are finally starting to realize that as a whole, as a general population, the police are not there to protect and serve us, but they're there to protect and serve themselves and their corporate bosses, right? And so when you see, cops walking up to, I saw a video of a cop walking up to a guy just walking, and then he pushes him, the guy falls, and then he just starts dragging him. What is that? That's not regular human behavior, right? That's someone who has something messed up in his head with a power complex where he wants to inflict pain upon others. And we give those people a badge and a gun, and then we give them immunity from their actions, right? When you see police killing after police killing after police killing of unarmed black people go unpunished for years, for decades, right? You are ushering in an atmosphere of police culture where they can do whatever they want and they don't have any fear of repercussions, right? That's why you have laws in place, right? Of course, humans have free will, but you hope that those laws that you put into place are going to keep people, restrict people in their mind from doing that because they know there's a consequence of their actions. Well, the police don't have that right now, right? They know they can kneel on someone's head, on someone's neck for 10 minutes, and if the guy dies, oh well, right? He's saying, I cannot breathe. You're going to kill me. And the cop sees people are filming him, yet he doesn't care because he knows there will be no consequences from him. If he'll even be charged, he knows he'll get off, right? And so that is where the culture of police are today. You can say not all cops are bad, right? But when you see these videos of 50 cops, right, and even if there's one or two cops and they're brutalizing someone, the other cops are not stopping them. Therefore, you are complicit, right? If that was a court of law, you're an accessory to that crime because you are doing nothing to stop it. And so that's where people like myself, people that come from the communities that I come from, and I think a lot more people are starting to see that this is the way cops behave, right? And if we're getting them doing it on camera, what are they doing when cameras aren't on? It's hard to even imagine what they could possibly be doing. So that's where I think people all over the country, even in the suburbs of the suburb I came from, I know there's people that were out protesting in the suburbs. Like that's where I think this is different. This is not just happening at the focal point of where the incident happened in Minneapolis. Obviously, it's happening there too, but it's happening all over the country and even in the suburbs. So I'm hoping that this can be the mass movement that we need to actually usher in some type of change, not only like law-wise, legislation-wise, but also just in the minds of Americans where even people on the right are saying, no, this is a problem, right? This is an actual problem that needs to be fixed in our country.
And I think there's another element. Obviously, we saw the video, but it's what happens before the video. Before that, you see a lot of these cases, and I've been all over the country. I mean, for basic things like pulling over a black man for, I don't know, suspicion of weed or pulling over, speeding, whatever. It's not one cop that comes. They come with the cavalry.
Yes.
Where, because there's this just built-in racism, not just in police departments, but in America, that I don't know how you really, you can't legislate racism, but there's police officers are trained basically to look closer at your communities, to feel more of a threat from your communities. And no wonder then people, run because what do? You stand there and get shot, or you run? The other element is, it's not being talked about right now, the economic violence towards black people, which I've talked to many activists about, because a lot of these communities, because of the de-investment, never really lifting black people into what was the middle class, you have deteriorating conditions. What do you think in terms of basically just the police psychology that black people are a threat? What can you really do about that?
Yeah, man, that's where I think you need to have a foundational change within policing in America, right? And I don't think it's an easy solution, but it's something. Just because it's not easy doesn't mean we shouldn't embark on it, right? And I think there's no clearer picture of the psychology of police than you see now. Things are being ruled unlawful protests, whereas weeks ago, when people were at government buildings armed to the teeth with automatic AR weapons, you see cops there without even their full tactical gear on, and they feel no threat at all. They're not throwing they're not shooting rubber bullets, they're not throwing tear gas, nothing. They're just standing there letting all these crazed white folks who just want to go get a haircut or go to the tanning salon or whatever, they're just with guns, they're just letting them yell at them, whatever, with no repercussions or no recourse, right? But then you see people, black people or people of color, even white people all together kneeling, and then you see a cop walk over, push somebody, and then just spray mace in their face. Like that's the two Americas that people like myself feel like we're living in. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's there's a light shined on it right now that a lot of people I don't think saw because of maybe they didn't want to see it or whatever. I don't know why, because I think it's been apparently obvious for so long. But when we've tried to peacefully protest for so long and we haven't been heard, I think is when you get, the protests like we're seeing now, where most of them are peaceful, but then you get some outside agitators, and then we've seen maybe some undercover cops going in and trying to spark up these narratives of it's just black people out there looting and all type of stuff, when that's not the case. But you see that that's what we have to deal with. You don't see undercover cops going in the protests a few weeks ago with people protesting the lockdown. You didn't see any cops infiltrating that, right? But then you get cops infiltrating peaceful protests by black people against police violence, and then you see more police violence of those people who are protesting over police violence. It's just insane. You'd think we were living in an authoritarian state, which is, I mean, you can't really tell me that's not what we are living in. We're surveilled 24/7, and they're instituting curfews, and you can get beat up by the police with no recourse. It's just, I mean, that's the reality of the situation right now.
And, a lot of NFL and sports athletes shy away from politics, but you've been tweeting up a storm the last year or two. I mean, I don't see great options for the electorate right now. You could say Trump's worse because he's just an out and about, racist. And right now, I mean, based on the audio we heard today, he's basically inciting the police and governors to just beat them up, get tough. Right. Dog whistling. He quoted George Wallace the other day, then pretended he didn't know what that was. But on the other end, you have the guy who wrote the crime bill, which did a lot to actually create this police militarization. Right. And he's throwing out the same platitudes we've heard forever, which is, we need to have a conversation. Right. I don't think we need a conversation. I think we need to, what do you think? I mean, obviously, whoever wins is not going to transform this, but it's kind of pick your poison at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you get a Biden, right, I mean, obviously everyone knows who Trump is and how bad he is and whatnot, but then you get the other alternate option is the guy who just said that we need to train police to shoot him in the leg and not the heart today. So, and then a few weeks ago or whatever, he's saying you ain't black if you don't vote for me. So this is America in 2020, right? This is the situation we're in, and I think it's hard to tell black folks or anybody really to vote for Joe Biden when he said out of his mouth that there will be no fundamental change happening with his presidency. He really wants to bring us back to the same situation that brought us Trump, which was, neoliberalism, moderate Republican policies that are, framed as some type of lefty social democrat type policy, when in reality it's just giveaways to corporations and banks. And, but like you said, he's really the architect of the situation we see with the police right now. So why should I go in and vote for somebody who has architected this and at the same time has no, he feels no shame about it. He's defended it. He won't apologize for it. So that tells me that he doesn't identify what he did as a problem, which means that he is liable to do something very similar like that in the future. So I don't know how you can ask me in good faith to vote for that. And I think there is an argument to be made that the quiet, neoliberal racist like Joe Biden, segregationist like Joe Biden, is really just as dangerous because they really stoke up the tensions, under the surface. And then you get someone like Trump who does it overtly. But if he did it and those tensions weren't already there, it wouldn't be as, it wouldn't be as successful. It wouldn't hit home as much as it does. But because people like Biden have kind of stoked those tensions for years and years with actual legislation that harm Black and brown communities, then someone like Trump wouldn't be as effective, probably wouldn't even be president today.
I think there's another element that doesn't really get talked about, and frankly, I thought Bernie should have brought this up a lot more, among other things he should have brought up.
Right.
Biden and the Democratic Party, their servitude to Wall Street, right? Well, who does Wall Street prey on the most? I mean, look at the 2008 financial crash.
Yep.
Black people got foreclosed on more than anyone else. Those bankers doing the predatory loans, they were going into Black and brown communities, scamming, the most vulnerable. You look at payday lending, which a lot of Democrats, Republicans too, get a lot of money from that industry. They're targeting the poor and Black. And, it's this topic isn't like as sexy as the crime bill, but Biden's doing virtual fundraisers with the who's who of Wall Street, and how they thrive is by keeping the poor and the Black and the brown poor. So it's not just reforming the police, but it's really doing something to give everyone the same opportunity, which the Democrats, if they're in bed with Wall Street, you cannot do that.
Exactly. And in all the reporting you've done in Flint and everything, right? That same thing wouldn't have happened in Bloomfield Hills in Michigan, right? These things don't happen in those type of communities. They happen in communities that are poor and low income, and mostly communities of color. And then you get politicians like Joe Biden who go in there and act like they can speak your language and they're all cool with you and everything. And then they go into the halls of Congress or the White House and they legislate against you, and then they code it as, oh, I'm helping you, I'm giving you a crumb here. But at the same time, they gave all the money to the corporations who went out the back door and stole all of it from you, right? So the real looting that happened, it's been going on for decades, right? And Joe Biden is really, kind of at the top of that system. And then he brands himself as middle class Joe, right? Or middle of the country Joe, whatever he wants to say, when in reality, he was for NAFTA, right? He was, he's for the Patriot Act. He's for the Iraq War. He's for the bank bailouts. He's for repealing things that lead to the, Glass-Steagall and stuff like that lead to the crash. So he's for all these things that hurt disproportionately Black and brown people. But then he wants to say that he was the vice president of a Black president, so therefore he is entitled to a Black vote, which I think a lot of people are starting to see. That's just plain bullshit, and people aren't falling for it anymore. And a lot of people are starting to realize that Ferguson happened under Obama. Flint happened under Obama. All these things happened under Obama. So just because you have a Black person in the president does not mean, and as the president, does not mean that he's actually out there fighting for Black people, for our communities, right? Our communities were still hurt during his 8 years of his 8 years in office, and that's why I think a lot of people didn't come out for Hillary Clinton, because they didn't believe the bullshit that the Democrats were spewing anymore.
And my last question, don't want to get you in trouble. You got to make a living, but we gotta look at the NFL. Commissioner Goodell came out, kind of your vanilla statement. The NFL family is greatly saddened by the tragic events across our country. The protesters' reaction to these incidents reflect the pain, anger, and frustration that so many of us feel. Straight up, literally everything that's going on right now is why Colin Kaepernick has been banished from making a living. A huge sacrifice, and this is what he was trying to do. And Colin Kaepernick has had his career stolen, basically. NFL, it's the most profit-driven and profit-earning league in the world. It has incredible cultural influence. It doesn't seem to me as having that responsibility. It seems to me a lot of empty talk coming from the NFL.
Yeah, so what I've been happy to see is a lot of players that are speaking out. A lot of players are saying this is what Colin Kaepernick was trying to stoke the consciousnesses of the American people that, look, this is a real issue within our community. And he tried to do it peacefully, and look what happened to him, right? So I think a lot of people are trying to say, look, when Black people have tried to peacefully protest, we are constantly ignored. They say, oh, I like, your end goal. I like what you're talking about. I just don't like the way in which you're doing it. Well, what do you mean? He's exercising his First Amendment right to peacefully protest, right? And so when you say, oh, I don't like that way of doing it, and then people start doing what we're doing now, and they say, well, we don't like that way of doing it either, then what do you want, right? We know you'll never be satisfied with how we're trying to get you to wake up to how we are being treated in this country and why we want change, right? And so that's where I feel, obviously, I'm hoping that he feels very vindicated right now. He continues his fight, and a lot more people join in on his fight, because this is something that is real. It's apparent. And honestly, right now with these protests, we're seeing that it starts with Black and brown communities of color, but it is really seeping into our entire society, our entire fabric, right? Because you see white people getting kicked in the face, you see white people getting maced, you see white people getting hit by cop cars. Like, it's just a free-for-all right now by the cops, and there seems to be no repercussions. And so I'm hoping that this can be something where a lot of people on the left, and hopefully people on the right too, can come together and say, this is enough. Like, we're done with this. And hopefully maybe people be like, look, I see what Colin Kaepernick was talking about, and I apologize because he was right. I think that's very hard to come by nowadays, but it's the truth. And so I'm hoping that he can feel vindicated in that, and we can continue to fight on that front that he kind of didn't start, but he definitely made just bigger and more apparent to a lot more people.
And by the way, anybody with eyes that watched his tryout, he's got an arm better than half of the backup schmoes I've seen, including for the New York Jets, which don't even get me started. So thank you, Justin.
Unbelievable talent. So there's no doubt that he should be playing.
Thank you, Justin. Everybody check him out. Must follow account on Twitter, J_manprime21. I particularly liked your near attending that infamous exchange.
So OG, well, I got blocked real quick, so.
Yeah. All right, man. Look forward to it, and we'll stay in touch.
All right. Appreciate you, Jordan.
Bye-bye. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statusquo.com, where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statusquo.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you. That was Justin Jackson, NFL running back. I look forward, hopefully, to see him play in person this coming season, whenever it is, in sunny Los Angeles, if I ever get out there. Speaking of membership, holy cow! We got a bunch of new members during that interview. Welcome to the revolution. New member Mark. New member Lisa. New member Piper. Matthew. Michelle. Holy cow. We are now at 1,796. 1,796 members. So 4 members away from hitting 1,800. By the way, for those of you that remember, we were actually close. We were like at 1925, and then coronavirus hit, so we obviously lost quite a lot of members, understandably so. People losing their jobs, healthcare, all that. So we totally get it for those that had to temporarily cancel. But we are funded straight up through a membership model. GoFundMe is a temporary measure. Membership is our long-term model. That way we don't have to take any money from the fossil fuckers, the bankers, big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, the defense industry, none of them. You. And I think we're proving day by day that you can actually create a true independent, not those outlets that claim to be independent, but then when you're not looking, take money from very, very untoward sources. We are truly independent. It's not easy to fund this. We have to pay for equipment. We have to pay for advertising. We've been advertising more, which is part of why our subscriber base is going up. We've had to pay for freelancers around the country. We had a freelancer in Minneapolis go live for us during the protests. LA, obviously Jen we pay for, me, Colin, Jamal. A lot of mouths to feed. We're happy to do it. We obviously want to pay people. But then there's the tech. Then there's the travel. Or just traveling. Me traveling costs a lot. So thank you. You could become a member for as low as $5 a month. And your membership is what funds this. But you also get bonus content, behind the scenes videos, and our monthly members call. Thank you. Holy cow. Dutch Bandit, $50. Power to the people. Why, thank you, Dutch Bandit. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Jacqueline DeBlue, another 50 pounds. Not into sports at all, and have never heard of any of these NFL players, or the NFL itself for that matter, but I'm really liking this guy, and great interview. Thanks, Jordan. Status quo. Thank you. Yeah, I don't really cover sports that much. I'd rather cover politics, but Justin shows that, our athletes are not dummies. A lot of our athletes are smart, are progressive. They don't get involved, a lot of them, in politics, not to take any risk with their brand or endorsements or advertisements or whatever. So I think Justin is awesome. Definitely check out his Twitter. Let me find it and put it in the super chat. His Twitter is... Okay, so I want to end, because we've had a lot to cover. Let me also make sure I don't miss any GoFundMe. All right, so we're now $476 away from $107,000 raised, which once we're at $107,000, then we're just $3,000 away from our goal. So this is super exciting. We've been raising a lot of much needed funds the last few days. I don't know if you guys know this, but another black man was killed during these protests. Louisville police left the body of David McCaddy on the street for 12 hours. And this is from The Intercept. Welcome, new Status Quo member, Maddie. Woohoo! We are now at 1,797 members. That would be 3 members from 1,800. Keep it coming. Sorry to do that. Weird transition when I'm talking about somebody dying. This is from The Intercept. The body of David McCaddy laid in the streets of Louisville, Kentucky for over 12 hours on Monday. McCaddy had been killed by law enforcement just after midnight on Sunday, May 31st, amid days of protests over police violence nationwide. Noon the next day, protesters were gathered at the site. McCaddy's body was still there. McCaddy, the owner of a local barbecue business and a beloved community figure, was shot and killed after Louisville police and the National Guard opened fire on a crowd that had gathered at a parking lot on 26th and Broadway. As the owner of Yaya's Barbecue, McCaddy was known to give police officers free meals. Bystanders and witnesses have said that the crowd was not protesting when the police arrived. Police claimed that they were returning fire after the crowd began shooting. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear attributed the killing to the Louisville Metro Police Department and the National Guard. Police officers, Louisville Mayor or Greg Fisher said, had not activated their body cameras in violation of policy. Police Chief Steve Conrad was fired as a result, but retains his pension. Newly promoted Acting Chief Robert Schroeder at the press conference seemed to walk back Beshear's statement pending investigation. Quote, "We do not know who shot him. We do not know if it was related to a separate incident, if it was due to the shots fired by our officers and the National Guardsmen and soldiers that accompanied them." The press conference did not address why McCaddy's body was left outside, and Louisville police did not respond to a request for comment. Robert Lavertis Bell, a community activist who's running for the Louisville Metro Council in the 4th District, was among the hundreds of protesters who had gathered at the scene early Monday afternoon. He said the crowd was made up mostly of members of the community, not experienced activists who were angry and hurt. Quote, "We were already dealing with the death of Breonna Taylor," he said, referring to the police shooting of a young black woman 2 months ago. Quote, "Even if they had some sort of legitimate procedural reasons for keeping the body at the scene, you'd think they would have in mind the trauma that they're inflicting when they do that, especially having experienced that with the Mike Brown case in Ferguson. That's the first thing I thought, that this was terrorism, because it's terrorizing even if they don't intentionally try to do it. First of all, there is no procedure. There's absolutely no procedure to leave a human being's body out in the street for 12 hours. That's just revolting. Absolutely revolting to do something like that. Welcome, new member Karen, by the way. We are now at 1,798 members. Sorry to have to say that while reporting on something so seriously, but have to give member shout outs too. We're 2 members from 1,800. Secondly, when are we going to say enough is enough with not only the murdering of black people, but who is exactly investigating these crimes? We're told, who said this? One second. Newly promoted acting chief Robert Schroeder at the press conference seemed to walk back Bashir's statement, pending investigation. We do not know who shot him. We do not know if it was related to a separate incident. Well, call me cynical, but I have had enough with police departments investigating themselves. Why should we believe the new acting police commissioner? Pending an investigation? Yeah? You're going to investigate who shot him? Well, how do we know you're actually going to credibly, with integrity and ethics, investigate it? If there were no active protests at the time, which witnesses said, what were the police shooting in response to? If it was accidental fire, wouldn't you want to just show that? Could have been, accidentally. If somebody was literally shooting at the police, which I find hard to believe, and they were shooting back, it could have ricocheted or something like that. But we're going to continue to trust police departments or district attorneys that in a lot of cases, do you remember? Because of George Floyd, I'm not saying we're minimizing it, but we're not hearing as much about Ahmaud Arbery because of the current George Floyd situation. Originally, it was the district attorney investigating it who suggested, this isn't murder. We don't have evidence for murder. And then he had to be removed. A lot of times, the officials that are investigating this through incompetence or just gross corruption, because they are kind of in the tank with the police department, are covering it up. I give you Laquan McDonald in Chicago. I honestly have not looked into this enough to say for sure, but I can tell you there is no procedural reason to leave somebody's dead body in the street for 12 hours. And the sick part is, this was a beloved local restaurant owner who gave police free meals, killed most likely by the police. I won't hold my breath for justice in this case. And by the way, sadly, it's not the only one to report on. You also have James Skurlock, a 22-year-old black man, was shot and killed by a white bar owner on Saturday night in Omaha, Nebraska, during a George Floyd protest. Witnesses said the gunman used racial slurs before the shooting. This is from the Daily Beast. A young black protester was shot outside a bar in Omaha as unrest across the nation engulfed the Nebraska city, and while the bar owner was reportedly in custody, and the white bar owner was reportedly in custody. The victim was identified as 22-year-old James Skurlock, whose father called for justice as the city embraced for another night of chaos. Quote, "Last night I lost my son, my wife lost a son, my kids lost a brother," the grieving dad, who has the same name, told reporters at the Malcolm X Memorial Foundation Visitor Center. Quote, his daughter lost a father, all because he decided to protest against racism. There's lots of speculation and rumors about how this happened. I don't really care, to be honest. My family wants closure and peace. What we want is for this to go to the court and get a full prosecution. We want this to go with justice and go peacefully. Police confirmed they had a suspect in custody, but did not name him. However, the Omaha World Herald and KMTV both identified him as Jake Gardner, owner of 2 bars, the Hive and the Gatsby, on the street when it happened. So, let me show you this. The gunman is the owner of 2 Omaha bars and described himself as a libertarian, a former Marine, a former Marine and a 2016 volunteer for the Trump campaign. His bars have received social media complaints that they discriminated against black patrons. Shocking. Live press conference today. Don Klain, Douglas County attorney in Omaha, says there was damage to property and Mr. Skurlock was killed. He says no racial slurs were used by the shooter, even though witnesses say we were, that James Skurlock, quote, damaged property before going to the bar where he was fatally shot. Klein showed video of a shoving altercation between James Skurlock and the shooter's father, and then the shooter, Jake Gardner. Gardner is shown shooting James Skurlock in the clavicle. It is bizarre to me that they're playing the video of this man's killing over and over. This is from a reporter tweeting it. Klein, the law we're looking at is justification for use of force. Deadly force can only be used in justifiable situations. So let's hear what the white district attorney says is so justifiable about this. If someone is in fear of their life or bodily injury and don't feel they can retreat safely, even if they're mistaken, it's justifiable. Klein alleges shots were fired by Gardner to get James Skurlock to stop attacking him physically, and that was justified because Gardner was in a chokehold by Skurlock. Klein still hasn't clarified whether James Skurlock was armed or unarmed. Klein, I hope that this great community that we live in can get through this without disruption. This is the decision that we've made. No charges. Klein's summary, Gardner waved his gun around to scare James Skurlock off. A physical altercation ensued. Gardner shot Skurlock because he was afraid for his life and ultimately was self-defense. Gardner's concealed carry license had expired. So let's get this straight. You have a white business owner who multiple witnesses said used racial slurs towards this 22-year-old black man. You have a white business owner who's had complaints about discrimination against black customers. This is the Daily Beast reporting that. You have the white business owner waving a gun around. And by the way, I don't know if Skurlock was or was not damaging the property. I have no idea. And to me, that's not even the point. Damaging property is arrestable. It's not licensed to murder somebody. The police did not say whether Skurlock was armed, so my assumption is he wasn't armed. So the guy with the gun is fearing for his life over the guy without a gun? Is that what I'm hearing? Again, I don't know if he had a gun or I don't know if Skurlock, the victim, had a gun or not. But if he did, you would think the police would say so. They didn't say he had a gun. So that district attorney is saying that the guy waving around his gun was fearing for his life, so he shot him and that was justifiable? Because what? Because Skurlock had him in a chokehold? Can any white person just say, I feared for my life? Okay, well, done. No wonder there's a fucking revolt going on around the country. By the way, can you imagine for a second if a black police officer, a black bar owner, if a black bar owner did the same thing to an upper middle class white guy? If a black bar owner shot and killed an upper middle class white guy from the suburbs of New York or the suburbs of Michigan, you think we'd be having the same conversation right now? And that black bar owner would be free with no charges? It's absolutely revolting. Absolutely revolting. Yes, Jordan, the armed man was scared of the unarmed man. It's not racially motivated murder. I hope you're being sarcastic. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The laws are even written to protect white people. Jordan, massive protest here in U District, Seattle. I'll hop on my private plane. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Thank you, Jameson, for the $2. Appreciate it. By the way, we're now two members away from 1,800. Who's going to be the lucky two? It's just crazy. And this long live stream, I'm going to end by commenting on something. We've addressed the problem. Now, what's the solution? We want to come up with a solution here. I think Philip Agnew, Bernie Sanders' African-American advisor and surrogate, I interviewed him. I think these words he said were really, really powerful and instructive. Let's take a listen.
I think the deep systemic change that we're going to need is people say abolish the police, and I love the slogan and I believe in the principle. And I think we've got to break that down a little bit more for people. So the two things that Dream Defenders, people in the movement for Black Lives across the country are talking about is there are multiple tactics. One is demilitarize the police. Take away all military partnership that they have, right? Take away the actual instruments of destruction and death that they have easy access to. That's one. Number two is take away the money. So they receive, there are whole cities that 50, 60% of their budget is spent on the police. We need to cut that budget, right? So that's the second thing. So take away the money, take away the weaponry. The third thing is we need community control over the police, right? The third thing is that when a police department runs afoul of their duties, which is supposed to be, I know what they're built as and what they're used as and what they're supposed to be tomorrow, but in a real society, police should serve at the bidding of the people. So real oversight means that the community should have decisions over hiring, firing, subpoena, and what happens. A fourth thing to put forward, I'm putting forward a bunch of things, right? You could do one of them and it would be great. A fourth thing is, let's say George's family decides to sue and they get a settlement. Do you know where that money comes from?
Should be the state.
Right, well, it comes from the state or the city or the county, but it does not come from that police department. We need to make sure that if a police officer has a settlement and then it comes out of the budget of the police department. If every settlement that came out of the budget of a police department came out, or every settlement came out of their budget, they would behave differently.
Hell, the Chicago PD would be no more the amount of settlements they've put out.
They would be done. They would be done. And so what then happens? Racism doesn't go away. We're not going to be able to, you said it, we're not going to be able to get rid of racism. If we ever will, it'll be generational. But that police chief, if he says, yo, Jones, $50,000 from, you've cost us $50,000, you're fired. You're bad for business, because that's what this is. You're bad for business, buddy. You got to go. Or probably more likely, you're on desk duty. You're never going to see the streets again. Right. And so those are four things, barring eliminating the police departments, which is my grand vision, that we could start demanding right now, that I think will start to de-incentivize a lot of what is happening with police murder, et cetera.
And lastly, obviously, before George Floyd took the national headlines, Biden telling people, saying the quiet part out loud was the big one. I'm not asking you to tell people how to vote, but you start seeing people like P. Diddy and others saying, no. this is business now. What are you going to do for us? What are your hopes in the next few months? Obviously, Biden could say. You can watch that full interview also on the chat. We've had a lot of great interviews the last few days. So thanks to Philip and Justin Jackson and others we've spoken with. By the way, I'm just saying, we are now 1 member away from 1,800 members. Holy cow. Welcome to the media revolution. Melissa just signed up. And Karen, if I missed you, welcome Karen. Not one of those bad Karens. This is a good Karen. We're now at 1,799. So, you know, what's really interesting about what Philip said, do you know, because I went, thanks to you guys, I went to Chicago last year. We went to cover police brutality there. There were a lot of protests and everything. Literally, Chicago, in a decade, the city had to pay out I think the number was $618 million just in settlements for police murdering black people. I didn't even know what Philip said until I spoke with him the other day, that money doesn't come out of the police budget, it comes out of the city budget. So the city is just footing the bill for police murdering black men. And the city don't want to foot the bill, but if it had to come out of the police budget, you would have no more police. They can't afford to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in settlements. So if the laws were changed that it must come out of the police budget, you might not eradicate racism like Philip and I were talking about, but the police and those white monsters that are strangling the likes of George Floyd, they might think twice because their ass will be on the line for the firing line. By the way, not just for murdering black men, but any type of mistreatment you could sue for and possibly get a civil judgment. So I think that's a great idea. I think we also need to talk about federal legislation, making these hate crimes, not just talking about manslaughter and these things, but hate crimes. Because after a certain point, it does have to do with racism. I've also said, this isn't discussed enough, you need to radically increase the budget for licensed therapists, mental health professionals in police departments, not to listen to police officers talk about their daddy issues, but for screening out of the gate. Part of the training needs to be, should we even allow this person in the force? Should we even allow this person to train? We need to screen for racial dispositions, racial stereotypes, frankly, irrational thinking about the black community and black people. Because a lot of that could be screened out by licensed medical professionals and mental health professionals. So, holy cow, welcome new Status Quo member Eric. We're now at 1,800 members. Holy cow. Woohoo. Oh, wow. Eric and Melissa and Aaron. So we're now at 1,801 members. Now the march back to 2,000 continues. This is amazing because I was kind of upset and deflated. We were over 1,900. And then obviously we lost a lot because of coronavirus. And now we're working our way back up. So thank you. Oh, just got another one. Welcome, Anthony. So we're now at 1,802. And by the way, if you don't know, you're not just signing up to support us. We do a monthly video call with our members. We were doing that way before Zoom became the predominant communications method. And you also get behind-the-scenes videos. When Jen is feeling better, I'm sure she'll do a behind-the-scenes video on what happened with her the other night. So keep signing up, statusquo.com/join. We really, really appreciate it. All right, going forward, we'll see what's happening tonight. I don't know if I'm going out tonight. We're going to continue to try to get people where the action is, whether the action is in Minneapolis, whether the action's in LA, other cities. We're trying our best to find freelance journalists on the ground that could go live for us. So we have our eyes and ears all over the place. We don't want to just hand over our channel to just anybody. I love activists, but I don't think it's journalistically wonderful to just like give our accounts to activists and have them go. We need, journalists who have done this and are journalists doing it. So that's part of what we're doing, trying to find independent journalists that are around the country at these protests to have them go live. So Emma has gone live for us. Tina from Minneapolis. Tina couldn't go live because the cops were actually jamming. That's another thing. The cops are actually jamming the signals so people can't broadcast. They did that at Standing Rock a lot, but they're doing it in LA and other places so that we can't go live and broadcast, which is kind of against the Constitution too, but that's another story. So we're trying to find people. Again, I'm waiting for my equipment to come from Best Buy. So I'm going to try to go out either way. It's just it's also a matter of trying to find where the hell the protests are. In New York City, if you're not there from the beginning and you come after, you're going to be chasing all night. I literally went from Times Square last night to Union Square to the Manhattanville Bridge, back to Union Square, back to Times Square, and I could not, for the life of me, find where the core protest is because there's a gazillion tweets telling you they're here now, they're here now, and you get there based on the tweets or based on scanners, and they're gone. So it was a little frustrating last night, but don't think like I wasn't trying. I was trying to find where the damn protest is, among other things. So one thing that you could do to make sure you know when we're live, because if you haven't noticed, YouTube isn't always going to notify you, text COUP. That's COUP to 370-370. That's COUP to 370-370. When you do that, you get a text message when we go live. We don't text every time we're live, but the last few days we've been texting every time we're live because it's usually been in the field. It actually costs us money to send these text messages out. So we try to pick and choose where we do it. We're not going to spam you. I think like normal text rates apply when you do that. But we don't, I'm not going to text you when I'm going to the bathroom or when I'm lonely, only when we're live. So if you want to get on our text list, I think we have over 1,000 of you so far. Text COUP to 370-370. I can't tell you how many times I see in the live chat, Jordan, I didn't get a YouTube notification, but I got the text, so that's why I'm here. That's the point of this. So definitely join our text list. Also, if you didn't know, for the cool kids out there, we are on Instagram. So follow us, Instagram.com/statuscoup. That's Instagram.com/statuscoup. We're also at statuscoup on the Twitter, at statuscoup on the Twitter. And let me make sure I didn't forget anybody, because I think we just got more members. Holy cow, when it rains, it pours. Welcome new Status Coup member, Marilyn Montoya, Diana, Anthony, Mark, Michael, my God. Oh my God, this is music to my little heart. Thank you so much. We're now at 1,807 members, so that's 20 new members live. It's been a while since we had that. Actually, on the night of the Iowa caucus, I remember we got 100 members live. I went live for like 4 hours live from the Iowa caucus. Got 100 members, so 20 ain't bad tonight. From the California primary, I went live for 6 hours. And then we got, I didn't realize, a data charge for going over with our data for the live view. So, thank you to all our new members. We're probably going to have our members-only video chat. My guess is next week, because this week is still very busy with all the protests going on. But keep signing up. You could become a member anytime, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member. Do you know it costs as low as 16 cents a day? That would be 16 cents a day. That's $5 a month. Obviously, we totally understand for those of you who are losing your jobs and your health care and all that stuff. No problem if you can't do it. If you can, this is how we build independent media. And we are not independent media, unlike others that claim to be progressive and independent and we're radical and we're rebels. And then we take money from untoward sources and then talk about Trump and Russia 24/7. Not interested in that. We're not going to do that. We are Status Coup, and we are here to give the microphone back to the people. With that, if you're new, I will end to tell you a little bit more about us. Thank you for watching. Sign up for our text list. Here's a reminder. on what we do.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We're in tonight with the president not saying something, not tweeting, not punching back. Nothing at all about Stormy Daniels.
I don't like that people like when I'm with you more than when I'm not.
Lock us up at the gates of hell and we won't back down. We will stand our ground.
Our kids breaking out in blisters.
Lock us up at the gates of hell and we won't back down. We will stand our ground. The
government and the media would rather focus on the president's tweets, scary boogeymen from Russia, instead of people being poisoned.
We were driving up and we started seeing the lines to this church here. A lot of the churches in Flint are distribution centers for free bottled water.
It's sad to see that 4 years later, we're still going through the same thing as if it happened 3 months ago.
They said, oh, your water's totally clear for lead, it's fine. There's no way for them to know that.
I really do believe that this water, from us consuming all of this stuff, that is what caused my miscarriages.
I'm all broke out. I have picked my own pictures. I'm all broke out. I'm diabetic. I have like webs. And this is from the water.
You killed his body, then you killed his name. Why are you here if you have no answer?
Eric Cherry was killed on the streets of Chicago at 16 years old. That's my grandson.
We saw 24-year-old Maurice Granton shot in the back while running for police.
Right now, there is a hunt, and black boys are the prey.
When it was communities who are mostly wealthy, mostly white, it's like the pain is felt. But with something about our communities where I see our youth having to fight, literally needing support to get the rest of the world to understand that the everyday shootings they have to see and go right back to school after their friend was killed is just as painful. Like literally having to convince society that we can't take more pain, that we can't take this no more.
Polluting the water? Since when is profit more important than water? When is profit more important than people?
Hey, it's Jordan. I'm here in Flint, Michigan. I am here on Lakeshore Drive here in Chicago. I am here live in Dallas, beautiful Virginia. Hey, it's Jordan. I'm live in Arlington, Texas.
Look at this destruction. You're not going to see this anywhere. You think CNN's coming up here? Please. Yeah, if you could prove Putin cut down the trees, they'll be here in a jiffy.
Status coup. Is it going to be statuscoup.com?
Yes. Most people are not lacking compassion. Most people do not know what the fuck is going on.